You know what he loves? He loves to train. Loves to train.
Yeah, I've seen him. I've seen his workout videos. It's inspiring.
Trains all the time.
I love that. I love OG, guys who have done it for 40, 50 years, and that's what I want. And that's, that's kind of the way that I train myself, my clients. That's kind of my whole methodology is I want to push for longevity. That's my biggest, if I had one word for, the way I like to create programming, it's for longevity. I want to be doing this when I'm 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old.
How old are you now?
I'm 31.
31.
As of last week, yeah.
Okay.
I like what you're saying about that because some people, when they talk about longevity, they just talk about like wanting to live to be like 126 or like try to break some record to be 150 years old or whatever, which kind of sounds a little miserable because everybody that you know would die.
Oh, yeah. So plus your quality of life. I mean, that's got to be about that. It can't be about the number.
And that's what it seemed like you were touching upon right there, is that it's about the quality of life. Like you want to be in a squat
100%.
rack when you're 70 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to be doing what I do now the same way I do when I'm training at that age. And that's something that if you, and seamless shout out to Ian Danny. I mean, if you're trained a certain way at a young age and you're taught the right way right out of the gate and you never make all those crazy mistakes, you kind of have a leg up on that. And that's something that I am just every day so thankful for, is that I just have, I don't have any real past injuries, something that wails on me, something that nags me. And I'm able to train 6-7 days a week. And that is in largely because I have a, pretty good understanding of how to train safely.
And you have a movement background. Let's not forget that, because you just mentioned
gymnastics,
training. Yeah, training when young, but you have a gymnastics background. So how do you think that that's training to your adulthood? Because as we were talking about in the gym, like I'm starting to do a lot of calisthenics works. I'm trying to train myself into a handstand and handstand walks.
Heck yeah.
And it's harder as an adult. But like when I see kids who did gymnastics, even if they stopped and they get a little bit out of shape and they're not doing a lot of shit, those kids can hop into a handstand. They can bang out pull-ups. They can bang out dips like no one's business.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you are in your very early stages of development, you've heard them say that kids are rubber for your brain and your body. You're learning your body's capabilities, both mentally and physically, at that early age. If you take somebody who's 10 and you put them in a gym and you get them with an instructor and say, okay, hey, we're not going to do weights. We're not going to do any of that, but we're going to work on hip mobility. We're going to work on getting you into the splits. We're going to work on the rings. We're going to do the bars, the pommel horse. We're going to do flexibility, strength, endurance, all of that kind of stuff. And we're going to do that. I was training gymnastics 5 days a week. If you do that as a young child, you will never forget that. And I told you guys, even now, I mean, I haven't done gymnastics in over 20 years, but I can still do a handstand. I can still do a handspring. I can still do a flip. Those things are stuck with you. And as a foundation, I've never seen anything that provides a better foundation for kids and for development. And I will say there is certainly a sort of a caveat that should be mentioned with that. And that is that you shouldn't really stick with that world for too long. Some of these, I touched on this when we were in there, some of these coaches, these gymnast coaches, they're like, oh, well, we got to get you to got to go to the Olympics. I'm like, well, I kind of think I want to do school. Like,
is that the only goal for gymnastics, by the way? Is it just the Olympics? Because I can't think of anything else. Like,
if you want to go, and why would you want to do this? But if you wanted to go professionally, that's really it. There is no other way. That's it. That's the end road, is to get to the Olympics. In order to do that, you have to sacrifice. First of all, I wouldn't say it's healthy. It's probably unhealthy at that point to reach that scale, to go that long and that hard, and all of that impact. I mean, because it is a taxing sport the higher you go. And I did it for like 8 years. That's probably about how long I'd recommend anybody do it. You probably don't need to keep doing it after that. I mean, if you start when you're like 8, like I did, and you go till you're 15 or 16, you're probably right now, I mean, you're about to go to high school, you're doing all these other things, you probably can stop and get into sports. But as that early age and as a kid, I mean, if you have young ones, that's a great environment to get them in. It's a classroom setting, you get, early, interaction with other kids, you get to do something physical. It's not crazy, demanding on your body as a young kid. It's just once you get older and you start, I kind of developed a little bit early, and I remember like being weirdly the tallest one in the class, and I'm not tall, but all these kids who stay with it for so long, a lot of gymnasts are very small. The good ones, the ones that go the furthest, are typically smaller framed people.
Yeah.
How is it for the females? Is it a little different? Because I know some females that have done gymnastics, and a lot of them have a lot of injuries from that. Is it different, or does it just depend on your coach, or what have you seen?
Well,
like, as you said, you didn't have really nagging injuries, which is kind of surprising because gymnastics is like very violent on your body.
It is. And again, I did it from the ages of 8 to 15 or 16. So those are very early ages. And I was fortunate enough to have a good coach. I don't really know is the honest answer because I haven't really studied gymnastics. It'd be a very interesting meta-analysis to do if you were to take, youth, male and female athletes, really look at, okay, what age demographic gets the most injuries? What are they from? How do they, improve? That'd be really cool. That'd be a cool research analysis. But I don't know whether females or males have difference, but I do know that the longer you do gymnastics, it's pretty inevitable that you will get hurt. And I'm sure I did have injuries while doing it.
What were your best events? They all seem like impossible to me, by the way. What were your best events?
Probably the rings. Honestly, I love the rings. That was my favorite. And I remember it's so funny because when you do the rings now in CrossFit, you've got the muscle up, which is so popular. Everybody's like a muscle up. I'm like, what? Like just getting up like before a kip. Like,
that's the starting position.
That's the starting. But that's not even an exercise. That's like hello to the judge. Now I get up and go.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden that's an exercise. But I remember I went into a CrossFit gym and I remember all these guys were just like dying. They couldn't do it. I'm like, what are y'all trying to do? They're like a muscle up. I'm like, what's a muscle up? And they're like, just getting up onto the ring. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, just like this. And then they're like, what the, gymnastics. Gymnastics teaches you how to do that.
Yeah.
But
that's such a good skill. Like, the cool thing I think is like, and Andrew, I hope Aurelius does gymnastics. But anyway, it's so cool because like if you do gymnastics and then you take that into any other sport, just the body awareness that you can have, I think would allow you to kind of excel at any movement-based type of endeavor. Because when it comes to anything, like you need to have a level of body control. I find it wild that we can deadlift a crazy amount of weight, bench a crazy amount of weight, squat a crazy amount of weight, and we can't do 5 pull-ups. At least as like when it comes to like real powerlifting. You know what I mean? I can understand a lot of those athletes are 200, 300 something pounds, and it's not the focus, but just on a survival type thing, if you can't lift your weight up onto a bar, if you can't push if you have no control over just your body, because that's all you have as you get older, that's a gap. That's a problem. And gymnastics will give you that as when you're young, and you have that for the rest of your life for the most part.
Absolutely. It's what I like to think of as kind of an imbalanced athlete. And imbalanced athletes can go a long way if their imbalance fits whatever event they're trying to do, like a power lifter. But for me, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm a powerlifting coach. I'm not. But what I like to do is I like to incorporate power lifts and functional movement patterns and endurance, all of that stuff into the same type of modality and get all of that combined to get a very well-rounded, structured human being. I love on it, the total human optimization. I think that sentence is perfect. I think when I think of like, what's my goal? Like, what do I want to do with this person? If they come to me and they ask me, hey, what are we going to do? In my head, I'm thinking that. I'm like, okay, we're going to make something that's going to touch on all these different aspects and we're going to get you from here to there, but we're going to do it, slowly and gradually touching all of these areas. And we're not just going to focus on one. So oftentimes you'll get an athlete, it's fine, but they'll want one thing. They want, hey, it's the worst when I want bigger arms or I want bigger this. That's oftentimes like immediately I kind of try to correct that thought process. But if it's, I want a bigger deadlift, well, then in that case, okay, we're dealing with most likely an imbalanced athlete, at least in their mentality. They want to build this. They've probably neglected this. Yeah. Maybe we'll address it. Maybe we won't. But in my head, that's how I think.
What does that mean for some of your clients, for them to be optimized? Obviously, it depends on their goals a little bit, but what are you hoping that they get from it? What are you hoping that their body's able to do and express?
Yeah, it all depends on the athlete. I'll use an example. I have a client of mine, Jessica. She's incredible, and anybody who watches our stories, I've had people reach out and say like, that is the craziest client I've ever seen you do. She was somebody who came in, she was probably like 97 pounds. She was just very, very small. Very,
How tall
very
is she?
frail. 5'6", 5'7".
Whoa!
She's very small.
Okay.
Very, very small.
Yeah.
Middle-aged, small human being, just very small proportion, but needed strength training so badly. It was very to say she was immobile was to just understate the whole situation.
She wasn't mobile either?
She was immobile, couldn't move all that well. She just wasn't strong enough. She did not have the muscle strength to perform basic. Like if you asked her to run, it would be almost impossible for her to do that. So for me, when I thought of, okay, what is her human optimization? What do I need to do with this person? Well, I need to start and treat this like this is a day one foundational, 12-year-old kid who's trying to just learn how to do the basics and get to the starting line. Just getting her to the starting line to perform certain lifts took months. And we've been together for years now. It's incredible. But seeing her go from, not being able to barely walk and step up the step to get into my gym to now she's doing, tidal tank, single leg step ups, and she's doing lunges, and she's doing, she's doing power cleans with the Fit Fighter, like all those kind of that to me is, someone like that who needed muscle strength, needed that's her.
Wow. How old is she? She looks like she got younger.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny.
You ask her, she'd say she did.
Yeah.
No, she did amazing. She is by far one of the most incredible stories I've ever seen. And that's an old one. She's had a couple more since then. Because it's funny, I just went back and looked through all the, just some of the old like transactional hit because we're doing taxes and seeing how long she's been here, a couple years now. It's incredible what she's done.